Get back to those announcements in a second here, but Chris, do you want to give a little welcome to the whole event here? You're muted, Chris.
There we go.
There we go.
Well, welcome everybody. I'm Chris Granger I'm the executive director of Cool Davis. Cool Davis has partnered with the city since 2010, helping households reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. The biggest part of those emissions is transportation. And so we're here with the city to help meet the community goal of carbon neutrality by 2040. Since 2011, Cool Davis, SAC EV, and now our own Davis Electric Vehicle Association have brought the community local show and tell and ride and drive events. And usually we're on the streets at Farmers Market this time of year for National Drive Electric Week, but this year we come by Zoom. So while we miss seeing you in person, we're glad that you're able to join us online tonight. And we encourage you to reach out and sign up with SAC EV and DIVA. Because they're meeting online every other month. You can do DIVA one month and SAC EV the next. And we'll make sure you have all the links to all of that when we do follow-up messaging for this event. I'll turn it back now to Erin, our campaigns manager, to tell you about the program for this evening.
Sure. So the first thing that we're going to be covering is there is a survey that is from the National Drive Electric Week group, and I'm going to drop the link.
You went on mute, Erin.
Pardon me, I was muted, I suppose. All right, so let me share my outline with you again. Can everyone see this here?
Yes.
Okay, great. So here's the outline for the evening. Right before I switched over here, I believe I dropped a link to the pre-survey in the chat, and Chris can mention more about what that survey is. But yeah, so right now, we're going to have this quick survey and then a few more announcements, which Sandra can get into as well. And then 5:40-ish, we're going to have these quick meet and greet rooms where it'll just be 10 minutes or so. You'll be popped over to the room and pop back automatically, so there's no need for you to shuffle any of your controls. And then at 5:50, the panel will begin. And that will be moderated by Michael McCormick. And 6:20, our discussion rooms will begin. And there's going to be 8 rooms with a variety of themes, and we will share those themes and links later on in the evening.
Just quickly, the pre-survey is something that we try to do with our national sponsors and local partners so we can get a little more information from you about your interests and your attitudes about electric vehicles. It helps us plan better events in the future. And like Erin said, she's dropped the link into the chat for you to go to right now. And we'd like you all to go and just answer a few questions for us. Thank you.
while you are all figuring out that survey and filling it out with your answers, I wanted to just share quickly. I'm sure many of you have heard about this event through the National Drive Electric Week website. For those of you that have not, though, I'm going to drop that link into the chat here. I highly recommend checking out some of our other events that are related to National Drive Electric Week. We have everything from how to choose an EV that's best for you, sustainable EV technology, purchasing a used EV, which you will also hear about tonight, as well as many other events that are happening across the country, all virtual, of course. So definitely go check out that link that I dropped into the chat and see if there's anything else that is of interest to you. But otherwise, I hope you get plenty of information from tonight and you're of course welcome to shoot us any questions that you have throughout the evening or after the evening has finished.
So I believe we're about ready for our meet and greet rooms. Does that sound right to everyone?
Yes.
Let me share then with you what we are going to be doing for that. So again, I'm hoping everyone can see this screen here. For our meet and greets, you'll have about 10 minutes in these smaller rooms to, unmute yourself, share your video if you'd like, and just briefly we'll go around the small room and share your name, your location, your current transportation, and an EV that you are interested in. So that will start right about now. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you had an enjoyable time in your meet and greet room. Chris is going to now lead the way into our panel part of the evening.
Well, first I'd like to introduce Michael McCormick. Michael serves as the president of the board of directors for Cool Davis. And we're very lucky to have him because he has a breadth of experience working in climate action and adaptation arenas, a history of working both for the Obama administration and for the governor's office for several years, working on climate policy, helping to guide cities with their climate action planning processes and implementing new standards for climate in general plans. And Michael most recently has been working with Harris and Associates, and just recently has started his own firm to assist different kinds of organizations and municipalities as well at the local level with taking action on greenhouse gas reduction and climate change. So Michael has he's going to be sticking around in our Q&A, so if you have any bigger sort of policy questions, he might be able to answer some of those, especially about the recent decision by the governor in terms of EV policy, and they're rolling out some really robust and interesting programs coming in the next year. So with that, I will turn this over to Michael to lead our panel. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Chris. It's so wonderful to be here. Little background on my EV ownership is I've been following electric vehicles for decades, but my first real big toe in the water was in 2005 with a Toyota Prius. I got very comfortable with battery technology through that ownership of the Prius. I drove 230,000 miles on the first battery. I sold the car, and the woman I sold it to is still driving that car at over 330,000 miles on the first battery. So in 2011, I bought a Nissan Leaf, and I almost never had enough range on it. And I got a little range anxiety, decided to buy a Nissan Volt, a Chevy Volt after that. I was able to drive as far as I wanted and committed to buying an EV as soon as mainstreaming got to over 200 miles on a charge. And so that happened, and now I own a Jaguar I-Pace it's a wonderful car. Absolutely love it. And really excited to be part of the conversation tonight, because I'm certainly a part of the advocacy community, knowing that electric vehicles are an amazing option when we are thinking about our on-road transportation options. So I'm going to introduce our panelists all at once and then pose a couple questions to them. Richard Bode, he has a 2017 Chevy Volt, which he bought in January of 2017. So a couple years ago, one of the, I think that's Generation 1 or Generation 2, he's a part of the Davis Electric Vehicle Association, SAC EV Association. He's a former member of the Davis Natural Resources Commission back in the 1990s. And his interest in EVs started in the early 2000s as EVs appeared as a major solution to California's chronic air pollution problems and public health issues. And in April of 2013, he leased a 2013 Nissan Leaf, which he kept until November of 2016. So he's probably had a few similar experiences I have on the mileage range on the Leaf. And Tim Tudd, he has a 2014 Tesla Model S and a 2018 Leaf with his son in Berkeley, and a 2011 Volt. And so he's a part of Indivisible YOLO Caltech Alumni Association, but he's driven on electricity since 2002 with a Toyota RAV4 from 2002 to 2012, a Fiat 500e from 2012 to 2015, which is just an amazing little car, and then Nissan Leaf from 2015 to 2018, and then another Leaf from 2018 to now, a Volt from 2011 to now, a Model S from 2020 to now. And so he says he's done over 5,000 trips and 250,000 miles. So he has a breadth of experience to share with us this evening on his experience driving EVs. And Theo and Tina Gallier, they drive a Tesla Model 3. And back in 2018 was their first electric vehicle purchase. Larry Melton drives a 2019 Hyundai Kona, and he's also a part of the Davis Electric Vehicle Association and the SAC EV. Larry's first EV is his Kona that he's driving now, so he'll be able to share a little bit about the first-timer experience on driving an EV. And then Marisol Cifuentes, she is an equity specialist in the greater Sacramento area. Her personal vehicle is a 2019 Nissan Leaf, and her work vehicle, a 2019 Kia Niro plug-in hybrid. So she gets the experience of both driving the plug-in hybrid and the electric. And we don't have a lot of folks speaking on the Kia, so hopefully she can talk a little bit more about her experiences there. So please do welcome our panelists, Richard, Tim, Theo, Larry, Marisol, and Tina. So if you could all come off mute, that would be amazing. And let's just do a quick mic check, make sure everybody's live. You know, we always have this issue where someone always winds up leaving themselves on mute, myself included. So Richard, can we hear you?
Hello.
Yep.
Am I working? Can you hear me?
All right.
I'm good.
Tim.
I'm good.
Good. And Tina.
Yeah,
we're here.
We're here.
All right. And Lisa and
Bob
Hello.
here.
I'm here.
all right. Everybody's here. That's great. All right. Well, I've got a couple questions to ask you guys. You know, I think one of the things that I struggled with in driving an electric vehicle in a hybrid and trying to go back and forth was I did have range anxiety. And so that was my biggest fear about truly committing to electric vehicles until they got to over 200 miles of range on as kind of a market standard. And now that we're there, I really don't have that fear anymore. What was your biggest fear in switching to an electric vehicle? And has that also changed over time with EV ownership? And anybody, why don't we start first with Richard and then go to Tim, Theo, Tina, Larry, and then Marisol.
So Michael, you know, we have in common, we both had Nissan Leafs and I actually liked the Nissan Leaf. It was actually a pretty good car, but it was rated 84 miles which meant that if you could drive it maybe 70 miles, you were on fumes. I think I got, once I drove it where actually the little meter was off and it was flashing at me, and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to get there. So when the Bolt was advertised as over 200 miles, in my lease, it ended for the Leaf. It was perfect. And I tell you, within a week of driving it, it was like a complete game changer. I mean, my range anxiety went away, it was gone. It was, you know, I still had, if I was going longer distances, I had to go and, you know, look for a fast charger or something. But for everywhere in this area, Bay Area, I could go to the Bay Area and back on a single charge. It was, so those longer distance cars are just perfect. And for commuting, my job was, you know, Friday nights, I plugged this guy in, so I went off and started charging it at midnight, and it would, Saturday morning, full charge. My wife and I could drive to work all week, and next Friday I'd plug it in again. So that range anxiety disappeared after I got that 238 mile range.
That's great. Thank you, Richard.
Yeah, for myself, I don't remember ever being fearful about buying my first electric vehicle. It was just what we wanted to do. And as far as range anxiety goes, we drove our Toyota RAV4 into the ground, basically, in terms of battery life. And my daughter could tell you, she was driving it at the end, she could tell you her stories about range anxiety in that car. But for myself, the only time I really had an issue with that, because you know, gasoline cars also have a range, right? And if you don't pay attention to what's in your tank, you're going to run out of gas. The only experience I had was driving my 2018 Leaf up to Lake Tahoe for a conference, and I thought I had plenty of range in my 100-mile car to get up there from from Auburn, where I was at last charged, and I just watched that battery go down and down and down as I was climbing that steep hill. And luckily, I remembered that Drive the Arc has these stations all along those highways for free. And so I pulled off, and there was a Drive the Arc station just, 5 miles ahead of me, able to make it all the way to Tahoe with no problem. Yeah.
Well, that's great. Yeah, I mean, I drove to Tahoe last year in the snow, and used about 2/3 of my electricity getting up, about 200 miles of range to drive 120 miles. And came back down. I only used 30 miles of range on the way back down. So that's funny how it works sometimes. Wow. All right, Theo and Tina, your observations or fears that you were able to come?
Yeah, sure. Our first EV, no experience with them, a number of concerns, but I think the environmental aspect of it, especially for Tina, who's an environmental activist, overwhelmed all the negatives. We did discuss it in some detail, the possibility that we might take a long distance trip. And when I say long distance, I mean, driving to Yellowstone or something like that. And we saw that as a real problem at the time. We bought the car in April of 2019. I haven't seen statistics on how many more charging stations have been added in the United States in the last 2.5 years, but 1.5 years, I assume there are some. So the real long distance was of concern. I think on the intermediate trips, Tahoe, West Marin, that sort of thing, we looked at the charging stations, and it seemed like there was an ample supply. Do you have any thoughts on that, Tina? Okay.
When I said don't put yourself on mute, that's why. Well, thank you so much. Larry, your perspective on driving the Kona and some of what your fears were entering the space, or maybe you didn't have fears.
I like to go out into the boonies with my vehicles and stuff like that. So I knew I was going to run into some limitations with camping and doing that kind of thing. But in general, once I saw that we were getting a reasonably priced car that would go 250 miles plus, I was a little concerned about where I was going to find fast chargers. But so I just took off like the week after I got my car, drove up to Lake Tahoe and back down, and didn't have to charge until I was almost back down into Sacramento. And that was because I had to climb the hill primarily, and it was pretty chilly too, so I didn't have the battery. But you know, later on in the summer when it was warm, I charged that thing and I get 315 miles of range at 100%. I don't charge to 100% normally, but I just wanted to see how much, and boy, I was stunned with the miles on it. So, I mean, I've gone to the Bay Area, over the coast and back without charging. I mean, it's just like I don't really have much. And I would say in the last year, I would say the number of charging stations between here and Southern California and the Bay Area and Lake Tahoe has at least doubled just in the last year. So I have no, you know, I'm still figuring, well, if I'll drive to Truckee and charge, and then I'll head out into the boonies 100 miles north, you know, if I'm going to go camping. So I'm actually figuring out ways to actually get out into the boonies with this thing too without too much problem. So I was really always reluctant to buy just because I thought I was going to be limited by mileage, but now I'm feeling pretty comfortable with it. So yeah.
Oh, thanks for that, Larry. Yeah, you know, one of the things I just absolutely love wheel drive, but also has air suspension, so that it raises and I've gone off-roading with it, done stream crossings, and no problem. Performs very well. I do wash it really nicely when I get back, though. Marisol, tell us a little bit more about your entry into the EV space.
So I started working for Center for Sustainable Energy last year, repping Clean Vehicle Rebate Project. And I was sharing with the group earlier is my husband drives a Range Rover and I drive a Honda Civic. And I learned about all these incentives and whatnot. And that Range Rover, if you've ever had one, is an arm and a leg. And I call it a lawn rover, but it's really true. It's actually sitting on the lawn now. But we ended up buying a 2019 Nissan Leaf. And my husband's like, I don't want a new car. I don't want a car payment. And that was the biggest fear, is the car payment, because we live modestly, and cost was really, really important to us. And so we're like, well, what's the most that we can get? So that was the biggest fear. So we got the dirt cheapest car that I can come up with, that I can get a deal, and that was the Nissan Leaf. I got the 150 range. So range wasn't an anxiety until after I purchased the car. And it's true. But now we use it every single day, and we were able to deduct about 10,000 off of it because of we actually did a purchase, not a lease, but we bought it for 29,000 and 7,500 for the federal tax credit, and then 2,500 for CVRP. Now it's 2,000. But so we were able to maximize those pieces, and our car payment is a lot lower. So it feels better, and we have a new car that's going to be reliable. So that was really a plus as well. So that was the fear, was the payment, which we figured out because of all of the incentives.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And there's so many wonderful incentive programs and low rate financing available right now. So I think, you know, when we think about, most of us have had this journey of having a car a few years ago and understanding the mileage limitations of it, and now stepping into the space where we have a relatively long range electric vehicles. And part of what I struggle with is when I do tow my trailer, I have a camping trailer, I do have a Toyota Tacoma that I use to tow that. A very wasteful vehicle from a mileage standpoint. When I'm towing, I'm getting 15, 16 miles per gallon. And Jeep just basically just announced that they're going to be doing a Jeep Wrangler that will be able to tow that trailer. That has an all-electric mode. It'll be a hybrid, but primarily electric, and with an onboard generator. This is a very exciting development, because I look at the Rivian vehicles, these new truck options that are coming out, and I'm envisioning a time in the next couple of years when I'll be able to get rid of my gas four-wheel drive pickup truck that I tow my trailer with and actually have an electric. So what is, panelists, what's your next electric vehicle that you're thinking about as you look at this really fast evolving market? And I'll just open it up to anybody that wants to start.
I guess the only answer I have for that, Michael, is we just picked up this used Tesla this summer. I'm not sure when I'm going to get another car, frankly.
Well, that's a good point. I actually, my Jaguar I-Pace, you know, I plan on having that car for 10, 15 years. You know, as long as the battery's solid and it's driving well, it's really well made. So it's the utility of the truck that's the only reason I'm really considering something else. But hey, with zero maintenance fees outside of tire rotations, that's about as good as you can get. How about the rest of you?
We don't have any plans under the assumption that the batteries will last more or less forever. And also we just love the car, really like the car a lot.
Mm-hmm. I would like to upgrade to a longer range battery if they become less expensive in the coming years. That would definitely be nice.
Yeah, our published mileage is 290. Notice when we charge that it maxes out at 204. So I'm not sure what that differential is. Anyway, we get 204, and for right now that's okay. But we, you know, we've had some few times where it's a little nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
You know. So I think 300 would be better.
Yeah.
Michael,
Marisol, how about you?
I'm waiting for the non-family car. So what I mean by that is the Chrysler Pacifica hybrid is fantastic, but I'm not a soccer mom. And I refuse to be that typical. So I want an SUV. A large SUV to be a hybrid model. I'm waiting for the hybrid SUV to come out whenever it does.
Great.
Well, Mike, I'll just add one quick thing is, I think we're pretty set with EVs right now, but you know, in the next year, really talking about the model 2021 and 2022, there are a mess of new EVs coming out.
Mm-hmm.
I listened to some Volkswagens coming out with their i4 platform and new cars. Nissan's coming out with a new SUV, maybe it's a crossover utility CUV, and that's coming out I think at the end of 2021. That looks pretty nice too. There's a mess of new cars. Ford's coming out with a Mustang, an electric Mustang, which actually I thought, you know, I got to talk to the Ford dealer to bring that to a Diva meeting. So, yeah, so I think there's going to be a lot of stuff here in the next, at least I think in the next 6 to 12 months. A lot of new choices.
That's wonderful. Well, and so most of our panelists, I mean, they all work in the electric vehicle space, highly savvy, working on policy, working on technology solutions. So I'd love to open it up to some Q&A from the audience. If you want to put into the Zoom group chat the questions you have, we can aggregate those for you and ask some questions. Before I do that, Larry, did you have something to add?
Yeah, you know, Audi makes a fairly large, almost SUV. They don't have such great range because it's like 200, but they have the all-wheel drive all the time, so that cuts down their mileage. But there is a fairly good size SUV out there that's equivalent to their Q5, which my daughter has a Q5. Her husband used to sell Audis, but there is an electric the Audi out, but it's expensive. We're talking $75,000, $80,000.
Yes. The Volvo also has a beautiful plug-in hybrid, but unfortunately, my budget is 30 to 40,000, not 70 or 80.
Right. Yeah. And the Audi is a BEV. It's not a hybrid, so it's a BEV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Well, so one of the questions coming in relates to charging, and where do you charge, and how long does it normally take? And an add-on question for everybody is, do you charge at work? Assuming people are still going to work.
Go ahead, Tina.
Well, I'll start. I retired in December, end of December, so I no longer go to work. But when I did go to work, I would charge at work every day. I almost never charged at home. And my wife is still working, but of course she's not going into Sacramento to work. And we tend to drive our car down once a week or so to Davis City Hall and charge it up. And that's what we normally do.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Why, for charging stations where you have to pay, why can't you swipe your credit card? Because if you need a charge and you don't have an account with that particular charging function, or if you're out in the boonies somewhere and you don't have cell phone service, so you can't use your app, it would be a little problematic. It'd be so much easier to swipe a credit card just like on a gas pump.
There are some folks that do provide a swipe option. There isn't a standardized payment method across all of the charging platforms, which I know that's one of the things the Air Resources Board is working on, and a number of nonprofits out there to align that charging infrastructure. You got to realize we are just at the inception of electric vehicles, and here in the near future, hopefully we'll be able to seamlessly switch between charging networks and be able to charge on any network we want from using a single app or a credit card option or a quick phone call. And I think that's the holy grail we've been talking about for a long time. And I don't know if there's anybody else that's working specifically on that issue that's on our panel that wants to talk about that. Otherwise, so for my charging dynamic, what I have is I live in a multi-generational household. We have 2 electric vehicles on the property. We have a couple of houses on the property to help accommodate that. And then we have a solar array that was built specifically to allow for the charging capacity. And so right now, with nobody driving anywhere, because I work remotely 100% of the time, as does my wife now, we are actually feeding electrons back into the grid a fair amount from our solar array. And otherwise, we would typically be driving on sunshine. I almost never charge at a public network unless it's a fast charger. When I drive to Monterey and I need to get back the same day, I need to do a fast charge and drive back. That kind of thing does require external charging. But for the most part, I use my home charger and charge by the sun. Marisol or Richard or anybody else on where you guys charge and how you charge?
I charge at home, and I forget to charge my 150-mile range, so then I get a stern talking to from my husband. But we are very fortunate. We live less than a mile from Whole Foods that has EVgo. So I'll grab a Starbucks, and right now we're working remotely, so I'll grab a Starbucks and I'll just sit in the car, turn the AC on, or go Whole Foods shopping and with the desserts. That's kind of what I do, but EVgo is our network because we get that free charge card. So it used to be driving the ARC, and the ARC, we had a station near us, but that is no longer so free. So I no longer charge.
That's great.
So we charge.
Larry.
I was gonna say we charge at home, and when my wife was going into work, she'd drive in. They had a charger there, but actually it's cheaper to charge at home. We had cheaper rates than they offered there at her office. So, like I said, I'd plug it in Friday nights, boom, she had a whole week's worth of charge to go on. So, worked great. And then I've used superchargers every once in a while, or fast chargers. I went to Monterey, a couple of places. Actually, that worked out great. So fast, cheap, right next to a Starbucks. We had breakfast at the place too, so it was fun.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I'm hoping for is hotels that have better charging facilities in the future. Most of them have 110 plugs, and you ask them if they have a charger, and they say, "Sure, yeah, we have a wall outlet." Like that's not what. And it takes 56 hours to charge my car on a regular wall outlet, so that's not a good solution for me. And there's a couple of apps that have now been developed to actually support finding hotels that have faster level 1 or level 2 or level 3 chargers. And there are hotel networks that are starting to think about how to deploy them across their infrastructure during their next round of renovations. So that's a nice promise. Like I said, we're in the first couple of decades of this technology. We've been driving internal combustion engines for 100 years now, and we've got a little bit of a catch up to do on our infrastructure. But it sounds like we're going to break out into breakout groups here in just a minute. But I want to thank all of you for participating in the panel. A lot of us through these networks learn from each other about how to optimize EV usage, and we learn where to charge, when to charge, how and why to charge, about incentives, staying connected to organizations like Cool Davis allows a standardized way to access that information. It's exciting to see the amount of organizations are getting involved in sharing that kind of knowledge, including SAC EV and DEWA and our other partner organizations out there. So thank you again, Richard, Tim, Tina, Theo, Larry, and Marisol for your contributions to the panel today. I think we're going to post the links out to our breakout rooms. You should have received a quick...
Right now.
Okay, and you should have received a quick summary in the email back.